Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Srila Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Jayam Krishna Premarupa Dasa Sarsvati Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarsvati Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Gour Premanande. Hare Krishna. So today is the auspicious appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarsvati Thakur Jai, and also the auspicious disappearance of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. So we don't have a shloka, but I will just, so that we can hear from Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's purport, I will just read a text, and then we start with glorification of these two Vaikuntha mans, these transcendental personalities sent by the Lord to help us. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So I'll just read and go straight to the translation. Prasangam acharam pasham atmano kavayo vidu sa eva sadushu kruto moksha dvaram apavritam. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spiritual soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. This is 20. Yeah. 3:25:20. Yeah. Kapila Shiksha. Moksha dvaram apavritam. The moksha, the dvara. Dvara means like Haridvar, the door to Hari. Moksha dvara. That's the door opens, door to liberation. And how does it open? When the prasangam, the attachment, is directed towards the sadhu. That's very interesting, because as a living entity we do have attachment, we have desire, we have attachment, we have emotion, we have feelings. We can't stop that. But the question is, where do we direct it? No. And here it is advised that yes, attachment will lead to the greatest entanglement in this world. If you develop attachment, you have attachment to your dog, attachment to your grandpa, attachment to your wife, to your children, to your car, to your position. Whatever attachment you have, it will lead to entanglement for the soul, because you develop desire to enjoy, to control. You have these all isupadis. You identify yourself with certain roles. But the same kind of attachment, if it's direct towards Guru and Krishna, here it's specifically emphasized sadhushu, the sadhus, then that kind of attachment is actually very much wanted. So we have to direct our attachment to these great personalities. And it's also significant because to love Krishna maybe not so easy. No? Krishna is still quite an abstract thing, like, okay, we know Krishna is a personality, he's a most wonderful personality, and when we hear about Krishna, Krishna Katha, of course then we come closer to Krishna, we understand, yes, Krishna is my well-wisher, Krishna is my friend, he's the object of love, but it's still it's hard to really develop that relationship so easily. But when the spiritual master, we can see him, we can hear from him, we can, we have a physical presence, we can exchange with him, then that becomes much more, accessible. And then we develop attachment to the sadhu, who is Sakshat Haritvina, non-different from the Lord. Then that's our great hope. So Prabhupada in the purport says, here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditioned life, and the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed, it has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material thing is called material consciousness, and attachment for Krishna or his devotee is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the platform of attachment. It's clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. Like, there's so much emphasis on detachment, right, in Shastra. But Prabhupada makes the point, okay, yes, detachment is important, but this is kind of a fine-tuning, like understanding that actually attachment always will be there, but it needs to be redirected. A living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditioned state, but the same attachment, when it transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. So it's very natural that we want to love, we want to have that loving exchange. So somehow or other we try to get that. Here it is recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees, the sadhus. And who is a sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or a long beard. A sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service. Even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service, if one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. Sadhur eva samantavya. Bhagavad Gita 9:30. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirms this, Lavamatra sadhu sange sarvasiddhi hoya. Simply by moment's association with a sadhu, one can attain perfection. And Prabhupada even more clarifies, Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee of the Lord is Dvaram Ahur Vimukte, the royal road of liberation. Mahat Sevam Dvaram Ahur Vimuktes Tamo Dvaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Bhagavatam 552. Rishabdev's instruction. Rendering service to the materialist has the opposite effect. If anyone offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then, by associating with such a person, the door to hell is opened. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord, because if one associates with a sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, a worshipper, and a sincere servitor of the Lord. These are the gifts of a sadhu. If we want to associate with a sadhu, we cannot expect him to give us instruction on how to improve our material condition, but he will give us instruction on how to cut the knot of the contamination of material attraction and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. That is the result of association with a sadhu. Kapila Muni first of all instructs the path of liberation begins with such association. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Giranjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namo Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vancha Kalpadurubhyascha Kripa Sindubhyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this instruction given by Kapila Dev is very significant, and Prabhupada's purport also gives a lot of insights that who is a sadhu. It's not defined by the external, but a sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. And he's always engaged, he's constantly engaged in association. And what is the gift of a sadhu? The gift is that he will teach us to become a sadhu ourselves, right? That's the gift. He engages us in devotional service, and in this way we also get purified and we also become sadhus. Then we can help others again. So that's the gift of a sadhu, that he engages us in the Lord's service, and by that we become purified. And in ourselves we can engage others in that devotional service. And devotional service starts with association and with attachment to such sadhus, with love to sadhus. And that's a very important point. Somehow or other we have to develop attachment and love for sadhus. And we see those devotees who actually have love for their guru, they have love for sadhus, they have association with sadhus, they got sadhu sangha. These are the devotees that are making advancement and making a difference. Those devotees who maybe are stuck and not maybe not progressing so much, maybe something is lacking, something is missing. And that love, that attachment to sadhu is essential, very essential. And days like today, where we have the appearance and disappearance of great personalities, are a great gift, because they give us an opportunity to remember such great personalities, and by remembering these personalities, hopefully our attachment for them also increases, right? So we'll talk first about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarsvati Thakur, and then Srila Govinda Maharaj also. And we will just briefly remember his pastimes, but I guess most of you are familiar with his life, and then I will try to read some about his character and about some pastimes and some of his instructions from the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, the biography written by His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj. So try to hear a bit about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mood. Okay, so we know Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was one of the 10 children born to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he was born on February 6th, 1874, as the son of Bhagavati Devi in Jagannath Puri. And we know that it was described that he was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck and wrapped across his chest like a sacred thread worn by brahmanas. There was already some indication. And then 6 months after the child was born, there was an Anaprashan ceremony where the prasad of Vimala Devi was given, and the boy was named Bimala Prasad. And then around the same time, we know that there was Jagannath Ratha Yatra festival, and then the car stopped in front of the house and didn't move for 3 days. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wife brought the infant in front of the Lord, and actually spontaneously the the baby was kind of extending his arms and touched the feet. I mean, there's no feet, but they touched the deity of Jagannath, like touched the deity. And at the moment, a garland fell off from the deity, and the priest started to joy and started to offer prayers, and everyone understood this is a very special child. And as Bhakti Thakur had prayed that the Lord would send, say, the ray of Vishnu, like a Shakti Avesh avatar, like an empowered personality to continue the mission, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was convinced that yes, this is the child I was praying for. And very soon in his childhood, it was shown that he was actually such an extraordinary personality. The child was no more than 4 years, and we also know that story. The father mildly rebuked him for eating a mango, which was not yet offered. And we can imagine the scene, like it's a baby, 4 years baby playing and then taking some mango, and the father must say, no, like the way you speak with babies, like no, you shouldn't do that. That was not good, like something like this, like. And then what would you expect? The baby, maybe crying or saying. But no, here this little baby said, "Oh my God, I did an offense. I took the mango of the Lord. I will never ever eat the mango." What? And not only that, as a baby he said that, or a small boy, but then he also, for the rest of his life, he followed that vow. It's like, wow. So it showed his extraordinary character, that, like, how he can have such a determination, making such vows as a small boy. That means, and we see that sometimes in India, I've seen it many times, you see small boys or also girls, you see children, and they are relatively young, but you see like, oh wow, this is a strong personality. Have you noticed this? I've seen in India, like here in the West, like people are 25 and they're still like children. They didn't grow up. They have no brain, no understanding, no maturity. And even at the age of 60, 80, they're still kind of children in some ways. Like they never really matured. But in India, you see that young people, you can see there's such a there's a personality. They have a strong character. Just mature people. But here we see Bhaktisiddhanta was, even at the age of 4, was an amazing person. Then at 7, there was when the excavating for a construction of the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta, they found a deity of Kurmadev, and Bhaktivinoda entrusted Bimala that deity and gave him also Brahman initiation. This at the age of 7. And then at that time he also already knew Bhagavad Gita and could explain the shlokas and preach and so on. Yeah, of course there is much to say, but as I said, I will keep it short. And then he became very great scholar, we know, in Sanskrit, in Jyotish, in astrology. And he was studying, and then by the time he was 25, he had become well versed in Sanskrit mathematics and astronomy, and he had established himself as the author and publisher of many magazines, articles, and ancient books, especially the Suryasiddhanta. Suryasiddhanta is a very important ancient book on astronomy, and Bhaktisiddhanta, wrote kind of explanation, commentaries on the Suryasiddhanta, which was very revolutionary and brought a new light to this ancient text. And he was recognized as a great scholar at the age of 25. And the title Siddhanta Sarsvati actually was given at that time already for his scholarship. And then later on, Bhaktisiddhanta understood that actually he wants to dedicate his life in devotional service, so he kind of renounced that scholarship, and at the age of 26, his father understood the mind of his son and guided him to take initiation from the renounced saint Gour Das Babaji. And of course that in itself is also quite amazing if you consider Gour Das Babaji being illiterate and not a scholar from the external material point of view, and Bhaktisiddhanta being such a scholar. Still he accepted him. And he had a great, like a deep relationship to his guru and very much attachment to him. For me, the most amazing thing is when we look at his life, that in 1905, that was at the age of around, I think 30, 31 or so, he took that vow of chanting 1 billion times Hare Krishna. 1 billion in German we say 1 Milliarde, no? That's 1,000 million names. Like how many names we chant a day? 1,728 or so. And he took a vow, okay, let's sit me down and chant 1,000 million names. And he did it for almost like 9 years. That's amazing. In the lifespan between, between 30 and 40, basically Bhaktisiddhanta was just chanting Hare Krishna. It's like, what did he do the last 10 years? Well, he chanted Hare Krishna. Like such a dedication. I mean, who can do that? It's like incredible. And then later on we know when Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then shortly after that also Gour Das Babaji left this world, Bhaktisiddhanta deeply contemplated and understood it's time for starting the mission. And in 1918 in Mayapur, he sat before a picture of Gour Das Babaji and initiated himself into the sannyas order. And that's, of course, it's controversial, but it seems that Ramanujacharya also did the same. So he followed the example of Ramanujacharya. A person in a similar caliber can maybe do that, but we shouldn't imitate. And of course, from that point on, then Bhaktisiddhanta started to develop his mission, the Gaudiya Math. It's incredible how he established the mission, how he spread the Gaudiya Vaishnavism in India, of course mainly in Bengal, but also around India. And it's also incredible to see how much opposition was there, how many Appa Sampradayas and pseudo-gurus, and he was very strong preaching against them and establishing the true Siddhanta. Okay, so of course we could say much more, but let's speak a little bit about his character and some incidences which give us some understanding of his mood. Srila Sarsvati Thakur was intense, and he intensely desired that everyone he came in contact with, indeed the entire universe, embrace his mood of unremitted dedication to Krishna. So he was intense, and he had an intense desire that everyone else also takes up to intense devotional service. That was his mood. His personality was premated with utter rejection of anything smacking of worldliness, and because his night insistence that others similarly abandon all attachments and fully surrender to Krishna resembled the attack of an aggressor, he was often misunderstood by those he sought to help. He was so intense and he was preaching so intensely, people would feel like attacked by him. Like, why do you speak so harshly to me? But his desire was to, wake them up. Chief Jago, understand. What are you doing? We need to surrender to Krishna. He had such a strong desire to help others, and he himself was so dedicated. Also, his presence inspired awe and reverence. Whoever saw him was like, wow, this is a great person. His glance was so powerful and penetrating that few could bear it. His every movement and gesture expressed extraordinary inner strength. Many smug persons became humbled and submissive simply by entering his presence. And there is a story by Maharaj Adhiraj Vichai Chanda Bahadura of Burdwan. Some kind of local, local Raja, a king, or like someone who had power over a certain district in India. You know where is Burdwan? You know, huh? Okay.
It's close to Calcutta.
Close to Calcutta. Yeah. Okay, so that king, the Raja, he tells, I often went to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarsvati and naturally bowed at his lotus feet whenever I did. Visiting. Yet at one point I considered, I am the great Maharaj of Burdwan. Among all the highly respectable people in Bengal society, none is more famous or respected than I. Who is this sadhu in comparison to me? Why should I prostrate before him? So he was contemplating like this, like, after all, I'm a king. Then he decided, next time when I go there, I want to offer my obeisances, and I will watch how he reacts, because I'm a king. On my next visit, I barged in on him and blurred, I have something to say to you. He wanted to tell, But before I could speak further, my head automatically went down to the floor in front of him. I was unable to wait to see his response to my rudeness. So, just his presence demanded respect. Even someone felt like, oh. But then just being in his aura, in his spiritual, influence was so strong that the super soul just naturally inspired one to be obedient. So then the motto of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's life was Krishnarte Akila Chesta. Everything should be done for Krishna. Everything should be done for the pleasure of Krishna. Krishna should be pleased. That was his main motto. Always busy satisfying Krishna in innumerable ways, he unwaveringly personified that maxim. Day and night, wherever he happened to be, Srila Saraswati Thakur was constantly absorbed in topics of Krishna. After his heart condition manifested when people would ask, how are you? He often replied, I'm all right. But Kunja Bihari Prabhu, that was like his main manager, does not indulge me in Hari Katha, hence I'm unwell. How are you? Yeah, okay. But because, Damodar Prasad is not putting me on the Bhagavatam class list, I don't get a chance to speak Krishna Katha, I feel unwell. I have not enough opportunity to talk Krishna Katha. That's why I feel unwell. He had no interest even in bathing in the ocean of Puri or in holy rivers, for he considered such activities a diversion from his life's engagement of immersion in bhajan, preaching and writing. Although he manifested different moods at different times, he was always thinking of Krishna and was never frivolous, mundane. Occasionally he became pensive and withdrawn. Sometimes he spoke so ferociously that others became unnerved and tremulous. When delivering Harikatha to his students, he was formal and grave. Yeah. Let's see. Also, he was very much speaking the truth. As we know, he was very much kind of to establish Lord Chaitanya's mission, the fetters of caste, ritual, and indeed all stereotypes and dogmas would have to be demolished. Hence, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati inevitably became a revolutionary. Saraswati Thakur lived for truth, and like a valiant warrior, never hesitant to attack the myriad manifestation of falsity. So he told to his disciple, real devotees do not speak to satisfy their audiences. And that's an interesting point, like as a speaker, then you contemplate, okay, what story can I tell that people will laugh, and I have to study this shloka that I can show my scholarship, or how can I present it in a way that everyone will applaud at the end. That mentality can very easily sneak into a speaker, that he wants to get some fame, or just please the audience that everyone glorifies him. But Bhaktisiddhanta very much emphasized this point. It's not about the audience. It is about speaking truth and trying to. Of course, it's about the audience, but in the sense of trying to elevate the audience to a higher platform. And it's about presenting the truth as it was given by the parampara. So devotees, they do not cheat people. Rather, pure devotees reveal the defects of cheaters who love to compromise. Only fortunate persons learn to be cautious after hearing the words of saints. Although the words of genuine devotees may appear to contradict our present taste and experience, nonetheless they are most auspicious for us. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati considered that his responsibility as a sadhu was to slash others' misconstructions. Although persons who lead serene lives of study and prayer but do not preach may be regarded as saintly, they cannot be compared to devotees who go out to confront all opposing elements and fight for Krishna. And even among preachers, many prefer to adopt a soft line, averting conflict by not disturbing others' false ego. And he cautioned his disciples that a flatterer, one who just tells what you want to hear, a flatterer can neither be a guru nor a preacher. And sometimes we have Jai Jagannath Baladev Sudra Maharani Ki Jai, Shishi Gauta Ki Jai. And usually we see some devotees, they're looking for sadhus or guru who is just always very smiling and very happy and very nice. But a guru also needs to be sadhu, who, in the sense that he can cut off the false misconception, and he also needs to smash our false ego. That's a guru. That's a preacher. Do not associate with so-called sadhus who, by not chastising anyone, do not act for others' welfare. By associating with sadhus, the heart should become purified from sinful propensities. The present role of sadhus acting for others' mundane happiness can render no well-being whatsoever. So in this way, he established that strong preaching is required. Of course, Yukta Vairagya was also a very important principle that Bhaktisiddhanta embraced and lived. He composed 2 Bengali verses describing Yukta and Falgu Vairagya. Ashakti Rahita Sambandha Sahita Vishaya Samuha Shakila Madhava. All sense objects which are used without personal attachment and in relation to Krishna are non-different from Krishna. All sense objects which are used without personal attachment and in relation to Krishna are non-different from Krishna. They should be used in Krishna's service. It is a mistake to reject anything suitable for serving Krishna, considering it an object of sense gratification. He reasoned, if everything is the Supreme Lord's energy, then why should anything be rejected? If God is good, then his energy is also good. Will not the Master of unlimited universes accord some of his estate for the use of his servants? His genuine servants are they who understand that temporal items should not be used for sense enjoyment, but can and should be used solely for his service. And this brings us to another of his main, like one of his main philosophical points that he repeated again and again and again, was the point of the seer and the seen. Drashta, that means seer, the one who sees, and drishya, the one who is seen. So he said, are we drashta or drishya? Whatever I have to say, my whole message is based on properly comprehension of this truth. But how few people have really understood this drishya vichar, he said. So then he explained, a bogi, one who attempts to enjoy this world, considers himself the drashta, means the one who sees, and everything else, including the Supreme Lord, to be drishya, the object of vision, darshan. Due to their bitter experience of this world, so-called renouncer wish to deny the plurality of drashta, drishya and darshan, and thus regard them as one. Only devotees have the proper vision to appreciate that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and alone is fully independent and no one's servant, but being drashta should be served by all, for the jivas and all else that be are drishya, objects of his darshan. So, the point is that usually we go through the world and we think that everything is meant for my enjoyment, and I'm the seer, you know. I see, and what I see is meant for the object for my enjoyment. But actually, we should understand that Krishna is the enjoyer, and he is the seer, and we are seen by Krishna. He who sees an object is called the seer, and an object seen by the observer is called seen. The instrument of seeing is called sight. It is common error to deem that the sense of sight the actual seer. Anyway, that's. But the point is that rejecting the outlook and instead seeing the world as the object of the Lord's enjoyment, seeing it as Krishna's world or Goloka is the Jiva's good fortune. I'm not the seer, but rather I'm seen by Krishna. I'm not the enjoyer, but the object of enjoyment for Krishna. That would be the proper mood. And Bhaktisiddhanta, that was his underlying basis that he always emphasized. And in many, many classes he always brought up the same point. And it's interesting, if you contemplate about it, if we really apply this principle, that I always remember that Krishna is the enjoyer, I'm his servant, whatever I see is meant for Krishna's enjoyment, then you really become established in that consciousness of dasa. I am Krishna's servant, I'm Krishna's servant. And then you give up the mentality of I'm the enjoyer and the controller, and that's basically the main consciousness of a devotee. And if this is not there, then whatever you do, it will be polluted by misunderstanding. And I will end with this one pastime. Bhaktisiddhanta also very much strongly spoke about again material morality and ethics, but always emphasized the importance of spirituality, and that Krishna consciousness is above mundane morality. There is one story that there was a Grihastha disciple who was visiting him during a tour, and he requested permission to leave. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati suggested that he remain longer. He stayed for some days and then he wanted to go, but Bhaktisiddhanta, no, better you stay a little longer. But the disciple replied that he had to return to his hometown to attend his office. No, Monday, it's time for work, you have to go back. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati proposed that he simply submit a report of sickness and stay. Why don't you tell your boss that you're sick and you need a little more time to recover? Blaue machen, oder? Auf Deutsch. A local lawyer who was present strongly remonstrated. like someone who was in a room observing that conversation. He was a lawyer. He said, "You're a sadhu, priding yourself on representing the truth, and this is how you teach your disciples to tell lies?" That lawyer was, how is it possible? And he left, he ran out of the room and was not seen, and was completely disturbed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's instruction to his disciple to lie. Then that evening, Bhakti Saranga Prabhu, like one of Bhaktisiddhanta's servant, he returned and he heard about the matter. Then he went to the office of that lawyer and he tried to explain to him. And he said, "Imagine if you saw robbers, the dacoits, they enter into your house and they with weapons and they steal everything from you. So imagine you saw robbers approaching your house and your wife was heavily ornamented with all kind of jewels and stuff. Naturally you would hide her, no? You take your wife, put her in some locker, like in a armor or something. And, if after looking whatever valuables they could find, the thieves ask if there was anything more, would you bring out your wife?" The lawyer had to admit, no. So then Bhakti Saranga Prabhu proceeded to explain it in the same way, because in that sense the lawyer would lie, Do you have more valuable things? And no, I don't have more. But actually he lies because his wife is full of ornaments. So in the same way, he explained the need of a conditioned soul to hear from and associate with pure devotee is so overwhelmingly that it must be done at any cost, notwithstanding minor, social niceties or moral ethics or rules. So that need for sadhu sangha is much higher and much more important than to follow some ethics or moral. And that's why Bhaktisiddhanta suggested, you tell that you're sick and you stay a little longer to hear some Krishna Katha. So this is a bona fide process. So in this way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always emphasized the importance of hearing Krishna Katha. And the other day, some time ago, we quoted about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's, love for Krishna Katha, how he always was absorbed in Krishna Katha, how he said that my life and soul is speaking about Krishna, and I've been listening for the last 50 years about Krishna, and I will continue to speak until this body falls apart. And that day I cannot speak Krishna Katha, that's really a bad day. So in this way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was always very much absorbed in speaking Krishna Katha. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Jai, Hare Krishna. Maybe we can open the window a little bit. You can see there's some. Of course, we have 5 minutes left. But as you can imagine, and if someone, I know some of you who have service, and you may need to leave, and I fully understand. I'm not taking any offense, but I hope you don't take offense if I continue for a little while, because there is no breakfast anyway. And at least today I will maybe transgress this Swiss rule of 8:30. So while it's the day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance, it's also the day of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj's disappearance. And we know on the 9th February in 1996, on the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj left this world in Mayapur Dham while speaking Krishna Katha. So this day is also a day to remember him. And of course, he was an extraordinary personality, and we can say that he is recognized by many as a pure devotee of the Lord, who showed all the symptoms of a Mahabhagavat, a very extraordinary personality. He was born on September 2nd in 1929 in the village of Jagannath Pura in Orissa. The father was Brajabandhu, and this Brajabandhu grew up in the village of Godaigiri. And Godaigiri is a village where Gopal deity was worshipped, and there's a separate story of that, how Gopal was originally worshipped in, maybe 400 years ago, worshipped in Vrindavan, and that in Orissa there was one devotee who desired to have a Gopal deity, and then Gopal appeared to his pujari in Vrindavan and told him he should bring him to Orissa. And that pujari didn't really listen to Gopal, and then Gopal came again with a stick in his hand and beated that pujari, that he had injuries on his whole leg, he could hardly walk, great pain. I told you to bring me to Orissa, so now you should go. And then he complained, now you beated me so much, how can I walk? Yeah, once you hand me over to that devotee in Orissa, my devotee in Orissa, then your injuries will heal, otherwise not. So Gopal was quite firm, so you bring me to Orissa now. And then that pujari brought Gopal to Orissa, and then his name was Giri. So that Giri, that devotee of the Lord, happily received Gopal and established a small temple and worship. And he moved out later and lived in a village, and that village became known as Godaigiri. And in that line of Vaishnavas, for several hundred of years, Gopal was worshipped by devotees of the Lord. And the mother of Brajabandhu. Brajabandhu is the name of Gour Govinda Maharaj as a child. The mother of Brajabandhu was coming in that line of devotees. And from his childhood he would travel to the village of Godaigiri, and his uncles, they were all kirtanis, because these devotees in Godaigiri, they were also known for their kirtan, and they would do sometimes kirtan competitions. You know what is a kirtan competition? I once saw it in Orissa. Then they brought a Gopal on a palanquin. They put, they brought a Gopal in a palanquin. They put Gopal in the middle, and then around Gopal there were 20 or 30 kirtan parties, like the group of men with their wampers, especially wampers in Orissa. Kartals is not so much played there. They all have wampers, and then they would in different groups, and then one group would play Hare Krishna, 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 pam 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 pam, with the wampers, and then they would. Yeah, mainly, and of course mridangas. Of course, they play amazingly mridanga, very loud and very. And then they would sing, and then the next they would sing for the pleasure of Gopal, and then the next group would sing. And this way, every group would perform in front of Gopal for the pleasure of Gopal, of course. I don't know exactly how the jury decides which is the best group, but there's something like a kirtan competition, and these devotees from Godaigiri were always understood to be the greatest kirtanis in Orissa, and even in Hare Krishna, and even in the temple of Jagannath Puri, there's a recording in a book that the Godaigiri Kirtan group should always be invited to sing for Lord Jagannath. They always should come and be invited to sing for Lord Jagannath, because these are the. So he grew up in that environment, and of course, from the age of 6, Brajabandhu, later known as Gour Govinda, he would worship the deity of Gopal, making garlands and under the light of a candle, singing hymns and reading from palm leaf manuscripts. And he would never take any food that was not offered to Gopal. And once he had a dream, it was a small boy, he had a dream, and then Gopal was appearing in a dream telling me, 2 men have come and they steal me, please come and help. And then actually later on, he went together with his grandfather they rush to the temple, and after some time they actually saw Gopal was not there. They run into the fields, and they found Gopal laying in the field. They also found 2 men who had tried to steal Gopal. They both had serious case of diarrhea. So they stole Gopal, but then somehow Gopal, by Gopal's arrangement, they become deceased, and they kind of had to drop the deity and run into the bushes. But the point here is that Gopal appeared in the dream of Gaur Govinda, or at that time Brajabandhu, and told him, please get me. So it shows the close relationship between that small boy and Gopal. And Gopal was not was, but still is a very alive murti. Gopal used to appear in dreams and talk to people. Also here, at the age of when he was very much attached to Bhagavatam, and whenever he was crying, the mother would just bring the manuscript of the Bhagavatam, and then Brajabandhu would hold the Bhagavatam to his heart, and then he would be peaceful. Like other children, you give some toy or something, but in the case of Brajabandhu, it was this Bhagavatam. Then he would always be happy, and he would usually sleep at night with the Bhagavatam on his chest, like embracing the Bhagavatam and sleeping like this as a child. At the age of 8, he had read the entire Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and could also explain their meanings. And then people in the village, they would come together to listen from the boy about the different scriptures. And he would recite Oriya Bhagavatam, Ramayana, and Mahabharata to the villagers, and in this way start his Krishna Katha. But then a little later, he was 23. At the age of 23, his mother arranged for him to be married, although he didn't really want. But he was the eldest son, and he had to take responsibility of the family. So the mother arranged marriage, and he saw his wife, Vasant Devi. She was 16. She was 16, he was 23. And they saw each other for the first time at the marriage yagya. Because that's the traditional life in India. And so he took up that responsibility. He became a government school teacher. He became a teacher, he taught, and he had a family life. But he was also his family life. He got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, chanted Hare Krishna, worshipped Tulsi, speaking Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And he also had on the weekends, he had like a program inviting people to his home. And it's said that he had, he was a strict Grihastha Brahmachari in a sense. It's said that he had 7 children, meaning 7 times he had an intercourse with his wife, otherwise not. And he, in his diary, he always prayed to Gopal. This is an inscription here. Oh Gopal, please make me a yogi sannyasi. I don't need anything. Prabhu, I'm not asking you for material opulence, respect, glory, or anything else. You may give those things to my younger brother, Kripa Sindhu. Let him maintain my family. No, he was praying, I want to take sannyas. Maybe my brother can take care of my family, of your family actually. Make me a sannyasi vairagi yogi, a renunciate of family life. Let me beg that prema dan, that wealth of love of God. Let me distribute prem and ananda. Let me serve you. Please shower this mercy on me. Prabhu, please bless me with prema bhakti, ecstatic love for you. It was the kind of prayer